If you grew up in the 1980s, you should remember at least one game that made you smash your controller on the ground. Mega Man made you hate your life. Ninja Gaiden was the realization that birds are the devil's assassins. Ninja Turtles introduced you to the dreaded seaweed. In general, the Nintendo generation has been raised to appreciate violently difficult gaming. At some point, the difficulty faded into the mist, and gaming culture was left with content that catered to the masses. We are now given games that are playable by our grandmothers, or our mom's best friend's non-gamer accountant neighbor. At what point did we bleed out our potentially amazing games just so we could make it through 100% of that new Murderer's Creed game? When did developers decide we need an easy button just so we get to play that new end boss instead of actually working through each level, biting our hands and banging our heads on the wall with 39 of our closest guildies? We miss you, Cthulhu. If you are a member of the cult of punishment gluttons and have been begging for a reprieve, then Screw Attack and James Rolfe have heard your calls and could potentially have an answer. I introduce you to the Angry Video Game Nerd Adventures. Based on James Rolfe's wildly popular YouTube persona, the Angry Video Game Nerd, AVGN Adventures places you inside the 8-bit world of rhetorical video game stereotypes, life-hating pitfalls, and of course, a large amount of toilet humor to fill in the gaps. The story goes as follows. You are the Angry Video Game Nerd. You're enjoying a nice time at home with all your friends. Suddenly, everyone is sucked into the television, and you are the only one who could possibly rescue everyone from certain doom. Insert Star Wars, or Mario, or any other stereotypical archetype storyline here. Your primary weapon will be your trusty NES Zapper and your amazing platforming abilities. While exploring each level in search of your buddies, you can also collect the obligatory power-up as well as options to change characters once you have rescued them from each level. Keep in mind, not all the alternate characters are easy to get or even useful for that fact. Now, some areas can only be accessed by specific characters. Unfortunately, these are the only useful jobs these alternate characters have. The nerd is really your best option for 80% of this game. You will also have the joy of being accompanied by your in-game tutorial, /helper, /fairy monster known as Naggy, appropriately named. Naggy will assist you in learning the game, your controls, and other bits of information that relatively intelligent individuals could figure out on their own. If you are familiar with the nerd character, you will instantly recognize all of the inside jokes and retro gaming references, as it will bring joy to your filthy and disgusting heart. That is who this game is made for, the fans. Now, if you're an outsider, or someone just discovering the show, you will be utterly confused and quite possibly appalled by what you see. Who is the skeleton with the guitar? Is that a mentally handicapped vulture? Why is there a pickle covered with feces? What is Mecha Death Christ? Much of the fan service is really going to be a difficult hurdle for you to climb. Fortunately, if you are new to the nerd and have the ability to not care about what you're actually doing or what's going on, then this is not that bad of a game. The Angry Video Game Nerd Adventures does one thing incredibly well, and that's nostalgia. Throughout the entire game, you're exposed to 8 strangely familiar levels. Each one reminiscent of games we have all likely played at one point or another. You get a Castlevania, a Fairies and Fantasy, an Ice, a Fire, a high fantasy RPG, a scary haunted house, a sci-fi adventure, and strangely enough, an overly sexualized tribute to an Atari 2600 porn game called Custer's Last Stand. Each of these stages tests the player's coordination, twitchy reflexes, patience, and resolve. Each stage is made up of what could be the most frustrating pitfalls in any game. This does not mean you're being cheated. Quite the contrary. Every challenge that the player is presented with is completely fair to the spot-on controls. If you move, you know exactly where you'll be moving. The controls are dead on. If you fall to your death, it's because you screwed up. If the boss hands you your pants, then you better do better. Do not overthink or you will die. Don't even think or you'll die. Do not forget the patterns or you will die. Players need to be prepared to die, because it will become a regular occurrence. Luckily, when you do fall to your death or explode into blood and organs, you're greeted with a wonderful screen informing you, in a spewing of foul words and disgusting adjectives, that you have died and must try again. This screen will give you a few laughs at first, but after the 10th time you're told to poop out of some animal's ear hole, you will become officially sick of it. While the levels themselves are challenging and require complete concentration to master, enemies that litter these levels do not. Every enemy is literally a copy of a core set of enemies. Yes, they're reskinned for each level. Yes, they may move a little different or attack slightly different. But do not let this fool you. Once you have played one level, you know what to expect for the next 7. The only time this does not hold true is during one of the rare occurrences when you get a slightly different style of gameplay, like the horizontal shooter sections. This is truly where the angry video game nerd falls short. The combination of repetitive enemies and a high level of difficulty really hinders the angry video game nerd adventures from excelling. It generally feels like there is something missing during the course of every level. Luckily, each level has been littered with checkpoints that ensure you don't have to go back too far, saving yourself the enjoyment of dealing with the rinse and repeat enemies forever. So why would you play this game? Yes, the levels are damn hard, and they will make you want to inflict physical pain on something. Anything. Is that really worth the time, though? Well, luckily, the boss at the end of each level will make the struggle worth every death. The one thing that really made retro gaming so magical has been injected into every single world, and that's the level boss. Each of these levels gives you the chance to take out your frustrations, or develop more. As is with the frustration of each level, you also get that same feeling of what the f*** when you're pitted up against the guardians of each of these levels. These battles will require nothing more than the immediate mastery of boss patterns. These are not battles that you accidentally pass, or they have a cheap way to win. They will challenge your skills and how fast you can adapt to a rapidly changing environment. Each boss gets more aggressive and more challenging the closer they get to impending doom. The levels are going to challenge the player, but the bosses, that is what keeps you coming back. The Angry Video Game Nerd Adventures is a wonderful game. It does have its shortcomings. The game is incredibly inappropriate and full of toilet humor and sex references. If you are a fan of the AVGN show, you're going to love this game. If those things bother you at all, you're probably going to want to steer clear. This is a solid homage to retro platforming goodness, but it has much room for improvement. Score: 3 out of 5.